Love is me not slamming your face through that wall. It's me not ripping down the Vic brick by brick while she's still in it.
This is the story of why Ross Kemp walked away from Grant Mitchell after almost 10 years, what he said about it decades later, and why, despite insisting he was done, he kept coming back anyway. Ross Kemp played Grant Mitchell on and off for over 3 decades. He left in 1999 at the height of the show's popularity, and by 2011, he was telling anyone who asked that he had no plans to ever go back. What actually happened was he returned in 2016, then again in 2025, and again in 2026. Here's what he actually said about walking away and why his own words never quite matched his own actions. Barking, Essex, 21st July 1964. That's where and when Ross James Kemp was born. His mother Jean worked as a hairdresser, while his father John was a Metropolitan Police Detective Superintendent, and by 1985, Kemp had finished his training at the Webber Douglas Academy of Dramatic Art. Most viewers have no idea Kemp appeared in a soap before EastEnders at all. Back in 1986, he played a character called Graham Lodsworth in Emmerdale, a role that's been almost completely erased by what came next, buried under 3 decades of Grant Mitchell headlines. Before any of that, there was a Kellogg's Fruit and Fiber commercial with a golf theme, the kind of early credit most actors would rather forget and most fans have never seen. Producers weren't taking chances when they built the Mitchell brothers. Executive producer Michael Ferguson created Grant Mitchell as part of a planned revamp of EastEnders, and rather than casting Kemp and Steve McFadden separately, he screen-tested them together first, wanting proof the 2 actors had real chemistry before committing to the pairing. That gamble paid off. Grant Mitchell debuted on February 22, 1990, and the character quickly became one of the defining figures in the show's history. Kemp has since joked that he originally auditioned for the part of Wellard the dog before landing Grant Mitchell instead, a line that's clearly self-deprecating rather than literal casting history, but one that stuck around in interviews for years anyway. Understanding why Kemp's 1999 departure mattered so much means looking at just how big Grant Mitchell had become by that point. Grant married Sharon Watts in 1991, and their relationship carried the show for years afterward. Then came 24th October 1994, the date fans still refer to as Sharongate, when Grant discovered Sharon's affair with his own brother Phil. 25.3 million people watched that episode, making it one of the most watched scripted broadcasts in UK television history. By Christmas that same year, Grant had forced Sharon into divorce in front of 18 million viewers. The numbers kept climbing from there. Grant found himself accused of Tiffany's attempted murder in 1998. His second wife and his first court appearance over the charge pulled in 15.7 million viewers the Monday after Christmas. New Year's Eve, 1998, topped even that, when the storyline around Tiffany's death aired to 22 million people. 22 million viewers for a soap character's storyline. That number alone tells you Grant Mitchell wasn't just a fictional figure by this point. He'd become one of the most watched people on British television, fictional or not, and that kind of visibility came with a cost the show didn't always handle carefully. In July 1997, press reports revealed a storyline had been planned that would have seen Grant rape Tiffany, slated to air on Christmas Day that year. The backlash was immediate and came from every direction. Female MPs, children's charities, and church figures all condemned it publicly as rape for ratings. Kemp himself was reportedly unhappy about the direction and was said to have threatened to walk unless the script was rewritten. The storyline was scrapped entirely before it ever aired. A year earlier, in 1998, Kemp had also reportedly pushed producers to tone down Grant's violence more generally, calling the punch-ups insulting to the viewer's intelligence, a rare glimpse of the actor pushing back against the character he was becoming known for. There was a lighter side to the fame too. Kemp turned up on Top Gear as what the show called the man in boot, riding in a Renault Twingo Sport that Jeremy Clarkson was reviewing, in a segment where Clarkson jokingly killed off the actor by driving the car straight off Belfast Harbour. It's the kind of appearance that shows just how mainstream Kemp had become by the late 90s, recognizable enough to be a punchline on a completely different show. Between the rows over storylines and the sheer size of the audience watching, something was clearly building toward a breaking point. That point arrived less than 2 years later. Nearly 10 years into the role, Kemp announced on 24 March 1999 that he was leaving EastEnders. His exit finally aired on 25 October 1999, watched by 19.5 million people as Grant crashed his car and then left for Rio de Brazil with his daughter Courtney. Tony Jordan wrote the episode, and Paul Annette directed it. 2 days later, on 27th October, Kemp was injured on the set of ITV's Hero of the Hour, hit by discharge from a blank round along with shattered safety glass, though he made a full recovery. Reception wasn't universally kind. Sunday Mirror critic Ian Hyland called the Grant and Phil confrontation that marked the exit a farce, and he wasn't shy about mocking how stunt-heavy the whole send-off felt. What actually drove Kemp to leave in the first place barely got addressed at the time, and the real explanation only surfaced years later. It wasn't dramatic when it finally came. Speaking to the newspaper around his 2025 return, at age 60, Kemp looked back on what he'd built after EastEnders and put it bluntly: he'd clearly failed, because instead of sticking with acting, he was doing these documentaries now. He didn't stop there either, going on to say that he actually considers himself a better actor today than he was the day he left drama school. None of that reads like a confession of some hidden scandal. What you're actually hearing is a documentary maker and BAFTA winner, decades into a second career, joking about how far he drifted from acting, while making it pretty clear he never saw that drift as failure at all. Radio Times got a similar reflection out of him around the same period. Stepping back into Grant after so long away left him slightly fried, he explained, because the character packs fighting, crying, and romance into a single scene and is never just sitting quietly in the laundrette. It's a small detail, but it says something real about why coming back to this particular role takes something out of him, even for just a few weeks. One detail from this period is worth mentioning, with a caveat attached. A single trivia source claims Kemp contracted malaria while in Africa in 1997, losing 2.5 stone as a result, which would place the illness during his original run on the show before he ever announced he was leaving. It's not independently confirmed elsewhere, so it belongs in the story as texture rather than something to build an argument on. ITV came calling almost immediately after Kemp left the BBC in 1999, offering a reported £1.2 million deal over 2 years. Around the same period, he took on the role of rector at the University of Glasgow, elected in 1999, though student criticism over his attendance pushed him to resign early in 2000, making him the first rector in 50 years to leave the post prematurely. The biggest story of his post-Grant years, though, is the documentary career he quietly built into something enormous. Ross Kemp on Gangs ran from 2004 to 2009 and picked up a BAFTA along the way, and that success opened the door to Ross Kemp in Afghanistan, Extreme World, Mafia, and Britain, and Deep Sea Treasure Hunter. These days, he also hosts Bridge of Lies on BBC One. His personal life moved forward alongside the career shift. Kemp married Rebecca Wade, then editor of The Sun, in Las Vegas in June 2002, and that marriage ended in divorce in March 2009. His first child, a son named Oliver, was born in October 2010 to former partner Nicola Coleman when Kemp was 46. He married Renee O'Brien in 2012, and the couple went on to have son Leo in 2015 and twins Ava and Kitty in 2017. Around 2014, discussing his documentary work in Genuinely Dangerous Places, Kemp asked a Mirror interviewer something that stuck. Why did he ever leave EastEnders? It's a rare moment of him second-guessing the decision out loud, rather than defending it after the fact like he usually did. By 2011, though, his position sounded pretty settled. No plans to return to EastEnders, he told Radio Times, and he meant it, explaining that he valued the control he'd found as a documentary maker, control he said he'd never really had as an actor, admitting he barely even watched himself perform anymore. That should have been the end of the story. It wasn't even close. 6 years after walking away, Kemp came back to EastEnders on October 24, 2005, and reports at the time credited his co-star Barbara Windsor with talking him into it. The stint only lasted a few weeks, but the numbers were still enormous: 13.15 million and 12.8 million viewers for his first 2 episodes back, later climbing past 13 million each once consolidated figures came in. That November, his then-wife Rebecca Wade was arrested over an alleged assault on Kemp, though no charges were ever brought. March through June 2006 brought him back again, this time for a storyline fans nicknamed Get Johnny Weak, pitting the Mitchell brothers against a gangland boss. That performance earned him Best Actor at the British Soap Awards, his second win in the category after taking the inaugural prize back in 1999, on top of the TV Quicken TV Choice Awards he'd already picked up in 1998. Not everyone welcomed him back with open arms, though. On his 2005 return, a psychologist publicly blamed the character for modeling anti-social, violent behavior to child viewers, a criticism that followed Grant Mitchell throughout his entire run on the show. Then came a much longer gap before his next return. 12 episodes between May and September 2016 brought him back one more time, timed deliberately to coincide with Barbara Windsor's exit as Peggy Mitchell. Even during his years away entirely, the character never quite disappeared. An archived voice recording of Grant was used in a 2022 episode, and in July that same year, a flashback special set in 1979 featured a younger version of the character played by actor Teddy J. In September 2023, Kemp published a memoir titled Take Nothing for Granted, Tales from an Unexpected Life, and that same year, he returned to scripted acting after 16 years away from it, taking a role in Channel 5's Blind Spot. January 2025 is when the BBC confirmed what would become his biggest comeback yet, reprising Grant Mitchell for EastEnders' 40th anniversary. Then, executive producer Chris Crenshaw called it a major part of the celebrations, and Kemp himself put it simply: he certainly comes back with a bang. That stint ran from 13th to 27th February 2025, built around a mental health storyline for his on-screen brother Phil, and it's this same return that produced the I Clearly Failed interview given when Kemp was 60. That May, he also appeared on Who Do You Think You Are, where he discovered his own maternal grandfather had survived the World War II sinking of the SS Duchess of York at the age of 50, a piece of family history Kemp hadn't known before the cameras started rolling. That October, he attended the National Harvest Festival service at Westminster Abbey, a public appearance that fit the pattern of a man now moving comfortably between his acting past and a broader public life. What came next surprised even longtime followers of the show. On February 14th, 2026, the BBC announced Kemp would return yet again later that year for a longer stint, and ahead of it, he told Parade.com something that sounded almost affectionate: "I'm truly delighted to be stepping back into Grant Mitchell's shoes." That return aired between 27th April and 26th May 2026, built around Grant coming home after his estranged son, Mark Fowler, called him back over the declining health of his childhood friend, Nigel Bates. Nigel died on screen on April 29, 2026, from pneumonia linked to his dementia storyline. His funeral aired on May 20th, and Grant exited again on the 26th. This particular return carried weight beyond the script itself. Kemp's own father died with Alzheimer's, and so did his EastEnders friend and co-star Barbara Windsor, which is exactly why this storyline is understood to have meant something to him personally rather than just being another job. Coverage around this stint noted something else too, that it marked the first time in 10 years Sam, Phil, and Grant Mitchell had all appeared together on set at once. Here's the tension sitting at the center of this whole story. Kemp said plainly in 2011 that he had no plans to return to EastEnders and that he preferred the independence his documentary career gave him. Yet since then, he's gone back 4 separate times: in 2016, in 2025, and twice across 2026, if you count both announcements as part of one extended arc. Call it what it actually is, rather than dressing it up as some hidden secret. This is a more human pattern than that. Someone who built a genuinely successful second career said with total confidence he was finished with the role that made him famous, and then kept finding reasons to put Grant Mitchell's shoes back on anyway, sometimes for a storyline, sometimes for an anniversary, and in 2026 for something that clearly meant more to him than the job description suggested. 9 years of service ties Kemp with Dean Gaffney and Sean Williamson for 9th longest-serving actor in EastEnders history, despite everything and everyone who came and went during his years away. One fan wiki source puts his total episode count across all 6 stints at somewhere around 1,000, though that figure comes from a single source and isn't confirmed by Wikipedia, so it's worth treating as a rough estimate rather than an exact number. His wife Renee reportedly hadn't even seen EastEnders before they met, with no idea who Grant Mitchell was, and yet for most of the country, that's still exactly who Ross Kemp is, whatever he said in 2011 and whatever he admitted about failing in 2025. Fans themselves have never fully agreed on what to make of all this coming and going. Long-running debate on forums like Wolford Web has split between those who feel Grant's repeated absences wasted the character's potential, and those who argue his original 1990s run alone was enough to secure his place as one of the show's most iconic figures, regardless of how many times he left afterward. It's worth remembering that's fan opinion rather than reporting, but it captures something true about how divisive his in-and-out relationship with the show has become over the decades. Nothing in current reporting suggests this latest return is permanent, and every comeback since 1999 has followed the same pattern, framed as a short fixed stint rather than anything lasting. Kemp keeps working as a documentary maker, still hosts Bridge of Lies, and he's set to appear on The Celebrity Traitors later this year. That's the actual truth Grant Mitchell, or rather Ross Kemp, ended up revealing. Not some hidden scandal behind why he left, but a reflective, almost self-deprecating account of a man who walked away from the role that made him famous, built something else entirely in its place, and never quite managed to stay away for good.